Hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley, and I'm joined tonight by the Gaelic Sports Tracker App owner, Kevin Kennedy, to discuss this weekend's action in the Allianz football and hurling leagues. Should be a very interesting weekend. It's round 4 the football, and I think it's also round 4 the hurling as well. So action-packed weekend to look forward to this weekend. Just before we get into it, shout out for our sponsors at Capture Athletics. If you want the best gear around, check them out if you haven't already. So yeah, Kevin, we'll be going over halfway through the Allianz football leagues anyway, about halfway through the hurling league this weekend as well. So we've gone through a bit of the Allianz football leagues and hurling leagues so far. So how are you finding it so far?
Yeah, grand. Obviously, I think football's probably catching the headlines a lot more just the minute, obviously, with the FRC and the rule enhancements and everything going on there. But it was actually today I seen that the GA are pushing it around about the Hurling Development Committee and Maher in there, and they're offering packs for clubs to get started with hurling as well, which is good to see because certainly I think hurling could probably do with a lot more promotion across the whole island in itself. But yeah, I suppose again the old thing about some games not being live and not seeing the best of games at time can be difficult, particularly for hurling. We need our product out there. We need it front and centre. It seems to be an awful lot of football that's on TV and not enough hurling.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. Like, there is too many games not shown live, and you look at across with other sports, League of Ireland, every game can be shown live on LOI TV, Virgin Media, even some on Premier Sport. So that's probably sold better than GA at the moment, which is kind of frustrating. But look, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's right. I think there's again probably one of the motions up this weekend is around about changing the term from PRO to communications officers and also having like a digital lead in each county. I certainly think that we could do a lot more of. I mean, are you going to impact the attendance at games by streaming shows? I mean, I went down the Antrim and Offaly game the other day and streamed the for my own personal use but it was on YouTube. I got like 400 views over the weekend. After the game, so it wasn't live. People who weren't not going to go because I was streaming it. It doesn't take an awful lot. So £200 or £300 camera. We don't need a GAA goal. We don't need the all singing, dancing, particularly whenever you're going down to maybe the lower league. People just want to see their county playing, and driving from Belfast to Tullamore, it is a long drive. It's a hectic drive. The cost and everything that's involved in that, but it's not hard to do. It's not hard to do.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully will be developed in the next few years. It doesn't look like it's going to be sorted anytime soon, no doubt about it. We have a couple of comments in here before we get into the action. Ace are saying, looking forward to watching Tipperary versus Cork and Kilkenny versus Limerick on the weekend. Yeah, that's in the hurling. We'll discuss the hurling in just a bit. We'll discuss the football first of all. Gavin O'Reilly said here, Sky shows tons of championship in England, and it's a shame Division 2 doesn't even get a lot of coverage, especially with the Jeopardy this week. And yeah, that's another point. Like, Division 2, there's no games being shown this weekend. I think the only games out of the first 3 rounds was shown, well, to be fair, BBC Northern Ireland did a brilliant job at showing Meath and Down. TG Carr showed Roscommon and Monaghan, but that was really about it. So it's kind of a shame considering Division 2 with a lot of jeopardy in it, as the comment said there.
A lot more than Division 1. Division 1 teams, you can see by the teams they're laying out and stuff, they almost go through the motions knowing that 6 points get you safe. They're probably earmarked a lot of 6 point where they're getting their 6 points from. A lot of counties. Division 2, I mean, I was very impressed with the quality on show of the Roscommon and Down game in the first league or the first fixture. I remember I was watching the Antrim and Offaly game. I attended it and then went into the club after and sat and watched the Down and Roscommon again. And likewise Down and Meath, a team. I know you've seen Meath already with Cork, but I was excited to see Meath. You see some of the stats they're pumping out. You're going, what type of football are they playing? But it's not hard to do. I think that, and the thing is, all the counties already record all the games and share them. There's a platform for analysts to go in there and have a look at. I think it would just be great that you put up a YouTube channel, GA YouTube channel, and throw it up in there. And I just think we could do a lot better without overcomplicating it as well.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And everybody's saying this, not just at this podcast, but other podcasts down through the years as well, that the GA should copy. Like, I think the League of Ireland is the standard bearer. When you look at the amount of games being shown there, there's no interest generating in the league. Like, I wouldn't have watched maybe League of Ireland as much maybe 2-3 years ago. I couldn't keep my eyes off Shelburne and Derry City last Friday evening. Like
Yeah.
that's how it's got now, you know, and I think the GA needs to go with that as well. And friend of the show, Lee White, threw in a comment here. I wish they did show a bit more Division 2 to 4 in football and 1B and 2A in hurling, but hopefully we'll have more coverage in the near future. That's another in hurling. You mentioned that even the lower divisions, they are not shown as much, but you look at even the Joe McDonagh Cup, that's shown on Clubber, which is good, to be fair. It was shown last year. The Christie Ring and Laurie Marr, like you could easily show that on YouTube channels, whether that be TG Car or the official GA YouTube channel. Just it would spread the game more. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Antrim, we have hurling's dead in Belfast. You know, it's really on its knees, and yet Antrim play all their home games in Belfast. I know schools wouldn't go to most clubs in Belfast, or would be football clubs first and foremost, and then maybe probably Dublin hurling. But there's an interest there, and especially now you're charging, I don't know, a fiver for under 16s and stuff into it, and the jazz that goes with that. There would be an interest, and so what if they're not making money? Well, it's not all about making money. I know there's a whole rigmarole at the minute around it with the GAA, but I done that the other day, and I was fearful of doing it for what the backlash might be, just in terms of, you know, the copyright and it's our product and everything else that I understand has to be abated by. There's money to be generated that then goes back into the grassroots and stuff like that. But look, it's sitting there for £200 to get a camera. Someone can go and stream it. There'd be no hassle to it, like, and you'll get
Yeah.
people from, you know, Australia, expats who are maybe living in Australia and are associated to Antrim, you know, or maybe even if you go lower down, Monaghan hurling or something like that, they would be interested in this. You're not going to see it on the highlights on RT Sunday anyway.
Exactly so, and Gavin's put in another comment here. A Saturday and Sunday show will be a simple tweak, and they could do that later. The championship, can't see why they can't do it now. It's exactly it. There's more games in the league than the championship, so would it make much more sense to have a Saturday game in the league? But look,
I suppose it depends on what
yeah,
your output of that is. You know, there's enough crying times around about what is shown again. I mean, we do it on podcasts, we do it on the papers. It's Division One gets attention, a bit of Division Two. By the time you get down to 3 and 4, it's almost like just a sentence or a word on it, you know, and it's just like a nod to it. You could have a Saturday night show, you know, it could be not competing with the late show on the Friday or whatever's on RT, but it could be a YouTube live. Just people are really interested. Like, Matthew, the amount of effort that you put in to promote for the betterment of the game, even your Stratling, you know, for the betterment of the game or for the love of the game, there's enough people there who would give up an hour or two to say, look, here's a roundup of the weekend, particularly Division 2 and 3 in the hurling, Division, you know, 2, 3 and 4 in the football. Yeah, we can do enough lot better. People will be willing to give up their time for it, and it wouldn't be a big cost.
exactly. And we could probably go all day with this discussion, but we will get into the games. And coincidentally, the first game we're going to discuss, I heard anyway on the GA website, this game isn't even shown at all. Armagh against Kerry, or Mayo, should I say, in the box at Athletic Grounds on Saturday at 5 p.m. It is a double header, or it's on TG Car, I think it is actually, because that's a double header with the NGFA. It just doesn't say it's live on the GA website. Again, like how would people know that it's on TG Car if it's not going to be shown on the official GA website? Like, that's like, you know, it's about promotion there, but like Armagh Mayo, crucial game in terms of avoiding relegation, do you feel?
Yeah, definitely a crucial game. I think first off, you know, we were talking about there. I think is it Cork play Monaghan in the LGFA this weekend. They also play in the men's footballs as well on the same day, and they're in separate venues. So fair play to Armagh and Mayo for having a bit of common sense of bringing that together, so that it is a double header. And particularly thinking, you know, the Armagh season ticket holders for the men's game, it's 10,000 of them or whatever it is. So it's going to be a busy night for them there. But certainly Mayo, they'll welcome back Aidan O'Shea. Maybe he get a bit more game time this week. But Armagh are obviously missing players. They had a poor enough performance against Galway. They done really well against Tyrone, and then a poor enough performance again against Donegal at the weekend. So they were still finding their feet. And unlike the year they did go down, and look at it, it's not a full strength Armagh team by any means, nor is it a full strength Mayo team. But Mayo just seem to be that they haven't changed their football at all. They're over reliant upon like Tommy Conroy and Aidan O'Shea. They done well against Dublin, but if they don't put in, I'm not even worried about a result. If they don't put in a significant performance this weekend, they will be in trouble. it won't be, the sort of the knaves are already out for Kevin McStay. He's had to come out and say, look, we have been following the rules. We know the rules because there's a lot of questions down in Mayo itself. But yeah, things could go belly up for Mayo a lot quicker than what they will for Armagh. But the box is a very hard place to go.
It is definitely. And you talked about Mayo not really embracing the new rules there. I know you did a few stats there on 2-pointers and things like that. Out of the first 3 games, Mayo have got 3 2-pointers in the first 3 games. That's a 2-pointer every game. And you look at even the Tyrone game. I know they won that game by 12 points to 10, but it just looked like they just didn't embrace the new rules enough. Against Dublin, it was the same, and against Galway, it was almost like they were too predictable. So, would you argue that Mayo are probably the Division 1 team that have adapted to the new rules the worst?
No, I wouldn't. But I think, and the only reason for that is that they are joined by others. They certainly haven't, for me, adopted the new rules. They're not really taking those shots on. Maybe the whole, we've been talking about it for years, that Mayo don't have that left-footed kicker. They don't really have players who shoot from distance. But I don't the other day as well, Matt. 14% of their scores have come from 2-pointers. 15% of Donegal scores have come from 2-pointers, and 16% of Derry scores have come from 2-pointers. The biggest difference is, though, both Derry and Donegal are knocking over 1-pointers for fun. They're Donegal, 64 scores in the board comparing to Mayo's 43. So I think that Donegal certainly haven't adopted fully the new rules, because they haven't really needed to change an awful lot from last year, where Mayo haven't done anything, which is the issue. Different if they were knocking over, 12, 13, 15 points or 115 a game consecutively. They're not doing that. So in order to get their tally up, a bit like Galway as well, they need to be hitting 2-pointers to make sure that they're at least competitive within games.
Funnily enough, actually, their opposition this week in Armagh, Kieran Whelan actually said on RT earlier, I just seen it across the screen on RT News now, just before we went on here. He said that Armagh haven't adapted to the new rules at all. Would you agree with Kieran Whelan in that statement? Or it's an interesting topic, really.
Armagh are funny in a way. I've never ever believed that Armagh have ever got their tactics right, apart from the All Ireland final last year. I've always thought that Armagh have done really poor in terms of delivering what they potentially could with the players they have. But then they certainly performed against Armagh, and I'm not saying that I don't think they were better in Armagh that day, or sorry, I don't think they were better than Galway that day. But what they were doing was, they knew Galway's strength was to set up, and you can't get scores really from inside, and they were prepared to shoot from distance. You think about Niall Grimley's wonder catch, and point. Ryan O'Neill took one, Oisin O'Neill. So they knew what their strengths were that time. But I'm just looking there. 40% of Armagh's scores have came from 2-pointers. But again, they've hit less scores than Mayo even. They've only hit 41 points so far. And for 40% of those to be from 2-pointers, that's the concern. That is the concern. They certainly are. Like, they had Blaine and Nats in the first game. Blaine's not going to get you 2-point scores. They then brought Rafferty in the last sort of 10 minutes of that game, and you could see how he was being used an awful lot more against Tyrone. Rafferty almost run the show, but more importantly, Armagh were able to stop Morgan. But then last weekend, it was, even if Aidan O'Forker hadn't get sent off, there was just a far better balance. And I know you can go in and say, well, there was only a 2 points in it before that 44th minute, but the total number of scores that Donegal were tipping over and knocking over didn't change. 40% of their scores came in the last 40% of that game, and that just shows me that Donegal have went, look, we're going to play the way we play, and whenever we need to adopt, we will. Whereas other teams are still are trying to adopt the rules that really don't need adopted to, if your game is strong enough anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of opinion there. Gavin was saying a win would be massive for Mayo. I think it was a draw, and it was in 2023. I remember that, actually. That was a very good game of football, to be fair. Liam White saying here, judging by the opening 3 games, it feels like at home they'll be fine. But away from home, it's a struggle for them. I think he's referring to Armagh there. Is that the issue, in a way? Do you think home advantage would be key for Armagh?
It could be. Like, Armagh know how to play. They'll have a big crowd behind them. Although in saying that, Armagh do travel okay as well. They do get numbers up in it. But I just think that their performances haven't been good. I think that I don't know where it's a hangover from New Ireland, or I know they're not worried about it. Like I know Rian's been out. He's expected back in the next sort of wee way, very soon, in fact. But they are without some of their more established players who have been there. Barry McCambry, they're without that team, and maybe Armagh are just not worried about it whatsoever, and they're just prepared to go with it. But then you see like the reaction whenever Murphy came on. If they were not worried about it, why would they behave like that? Even McGinney, seen him home, he was getting involved with one of the players, and he was giving a wee bit to them. I don't know what I just never been impressed. I've never thought that Armagh have reached their potential for the players that they have. They always seem to be holding a wee bit back, and I know there's players that are fighting for positions on the pitch. There's a few more you have done really well already this year, even like Jamar Hall and stuff coming back in. But it sort of tells you he didn't get a look in last year. I don't think his performances have improved so much over 12 months. They're not getting a look in last year to almost sudden 2 or 3 games he's getting this year. I just don't think that they're ticking yet, and they'll if they go down, they'll not be worried about it. Like if they go down to Division 2, they'll not be worried about it. They'll know that they can get back up again. But I don't think they'll want to go down.
Could we see a situation similar to Donegal in 2013? They got relegated from Division 1 to Division 2, and then what happened in the Championship was an absolute shambles. They lost in the quarter-final to Mayo, and against Monaghan, they were shocked. Let's call a spade in the Ulster final too.
Yeah, I can't see that simply because they get the slightly easier side of the draw. They get after them in the first game. Um, they will, that'll be a walk in the park for them, unfortunately. And then they miss. They don't meet Donegal and Derry, who meet in the first round. It's almost like they have an easier path to the Ulster final again this year. But by that stage, look, they'll be back in. They will have added to it. Austin will be back. Rhiannon will be back. They will start to use their bench an awful lot, which got them a lot of return last year. It just didn't. It hasn't worked for them this year. But again, they're working with a very depleted team just now. But
Yeah,
I think like
exactly.
come championship, Armagh will be there or thereabouts.
We'll have to see what happens in the Championship indeed. But Gavin's commenting here about going back to Mayo, listening to the RF podcast. The Mayo crowd was very little at home against Tyrone. It kind of looked that way on the TV as well. So what would it look like away could be the difference too. Like a prediction on this game, Kevin, do you think Armagh will do enough despite their struggles to win this game against Mayo?
Yeah, I think so. I think Armagh have enough to get over the line, on that game. And I just think, I don't know. I think that if we watch the Dublin and Mayo game, the very first game where Sheridan was doing that for Dublin, and Mayo completely fell for that dummy keeper run that was running all over the shop. And if you were watching the game, you would have went, like, he's evolved. Not disrespecting the guy at all, but he was obviously there as a decoy runner, and Mayo didn't catch on to it. I just think that Mayo were lacking a serious amount of initiative whenever it comes. They have good players, and they do have good players. You're taking a good player like Tommy Conroy still looking back. Aidan O'Shea, if they play in the full game, can the Armagh full back line handle him under a high ball? Something drop. Maybe that'll be the ointment they need. Maybe to start trying for 2 pointers, knowing that Big O'Shea's in there to drop short. I don't think I think Armagh went comfortable. I think there'll be maybe 5 or 6 points in it towards the Armagh side of it. But I think for Mayo, if things, and it's probably indicative that their crowd wasn't there for them at home, I think there's just a lot of frustration in Mayo right now. And if they don't get a performance at least on Sunday, then they will be in trouble, because I think even though they got the win the other day, it was almost like, right, that's 2 points, but Jesus, it was a shocking performance. I think the nails sort of starting to go into McStay's coffin.
I agree as well. I'll probably go for an Armagh win, just because maybe the home advantage will push them over the line. And Mayo, yes, they beat Tyrone last weekend, but it's just a poor performance overall. Haven't really grasped the new rules either. It's going to be, I'd say it's going to be a tough year for Kevin Stay, but we'll have to see what happens on Saturday between those two sides. The next game, Dublin and Derry, this is in Croke Park, live on the BBC iPlayer and GA Go on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. You said on the JMAT podcast earlier in the week, Kevin, that Derry would win this game. Do you still have that belief?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not impressed by Derry, obviously, because they still haven't got a win on the board. But Paddy Colley's come into the game late. He tried to go with Lynch in the first game and put it up to a very impressive Tyrone team that night. up until 55 minutes. They were there. Then against Galway, against Kerry, they had outscored Kerry for a lot of that game, only for those goals to be caught out. And obviously McNichol's first game in there, you could see the benefit of him going forward in attack. Just not that he was doing an awful lot going forward, but he was stretching the Kerry defence a bit more, which gives players like McGuigan just that extra bit of space. And I think that not conceding a goal against Galway is a massive boost for them, because that young lad get a bit of confidence from that now. I'm looking at there, like the Kerry, the Derry predicted score. They are 49 scores in the game, which isn't great, but their predicted scores are 18, and they are expected concede 18 scores as well, and that's despite having the 5 goals against them versus Kerry. And Kerry, are a team who defensively are struggling, but going forward they're still okay. They're still grand going forward, and I think that Dublin have impressed me for the lack of players that they've had in terms, not the lack of players they've had, the transition almost that they are going through. We've seen a wonderful performance by Sean Bugler, Kieran Kilkenny again. They will take an awful lot of satisfaction from the win over Kerry, but I think that now that Talia has started to get a bit more settled within the team, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Derry win.
Just out of matter of interest, what do you see in Paddy Halley that could change this Derry team around, in your opinion? Because with Down, it didn't really work from being the main man.
No, I think Paddy would be honest with that as well, and he'd say they were getting somewhere. Wasn't the first year they had, and then they started to make progress into that, and then there was sort of things going on in the background, and Paddy says, "Look, the clubs don't want me here. I'm going to go. There's no point." I think people in Down, players would have still had him, and I think the committee in Down would have still had him, but I think the clubs were getting a wee bit irate on it, and it was seen where Down went after that. They didn't do an awful lot for a long time. But I think that Paddy now has to learn to be a manager and not a coach. And he loves coaching. Like, that's his bread and butter. He does love coaching. I know that he doesn't like the whole PR side of things and speaking to the media and stuff and everything that comes with being a manager. I know that personally. I spoke to him often about it. But I think now that he's in there, he can start. Paddy's big into data. Paddy loves his data. And you can see, even last year, I was chatting with him and he was saying, like, Derry aren't a bad team. They're not a bad team. They couldn't get their conversions high enough. And the Donegal performance again for me was a bit of a blowover in terms of putting Donegal on the pedestal. But I think that in time he will start to find more players. Even big Tohill, Anthony Tohill, or Anton Tohill, Anthony's son. Although he's not a brilliant he's not a Conor Glass. He's a big raw talent, and you can see him, like, he hasn't been included within the Donegal team since Gallagher was there, and even then he wasn't getting much of a look in. But his height and stuff under the new rules will be welcomed. As Paddy gets more used to the new rules, he will start to see ways of closing out and improving the defence so that you have a good foundation for it. I don't know what the rest of the background team is like for it. He has a good lad in there in a strength condition in Carver O'Carlin, who was with Limerick, is with Tipperary, and the boy knows his stuff. But I think Paddy will just take a wee bit more time. If he gets relegated from Division 1, he'll not want to. But if he does, he'll not see a big issue with it. He will have his eggs in one basket for that run in Ulster Championship whenever they meet Donegal.
It's obviously great to get an insight of Paddy Tally from a guy that has taught him. So it's actually great to see that.
Yeah, Paddy's he's a brilliant lad, brilliant fella. You could sit and chat with him for football for hours, like.
Yeah,
I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but he used to chat to me about the Kerry stuff, and I remember meeting him one time down in Dungannon, and I think I met him at 1 o'clock, and it was 5 o'clock before we were getting up to leave, and just the level of detail he was going into in terms of what he was doing with Kerry and how those boys. I mean, I know you're down next door neighbours to it, but what he was saying about the GA down that part of the world where it is life. It's not the same in Belfast, it's not the same. And he's saying about boys there who, they just, like Tom O'Sullivan is, I think he's an accountant by trade. He just loves his numbers. Like, he can speak to Tom about numbers all day long and stuff. And it was just brilliant to see that whole insight to it.
Geez, Thomas Sullivan being an accountant, geez, that's something you don't really like. Geez, fair play to him. That's
I think that's
brilliant.
And
features. Yeah, sure. That's like he's from Dingle. He seems very analytical on the pitch. In fairness, Tom. So like if you judge by just putting that all to perspective, it doesn't seem like a shock that he's an accountant. But yeah, as for Dublin, like DCU winning the Sigurdsson Cup with Donald midfield and Greg McEnany midfield. Now that Brian Fenton has left the panel, you mentioned that win over Kerry last weekend. Do you think Dublin football has got the boost that it's needed over the last few weeks with all that going on? Like even if Ethan Dunn and Greg McEnany and these type of players do come into the team, is it kind of a new age of Dublin football?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's still supported by the old guard. I think that Kieran Kilkenny's performance the other day again was just sensational, particularly in the second half. And is Kieran, is he 30 yet? I think he's just doing around about that age. But it's just leadership. It's still there. They've obviously taken their time to get players, and it was horrible to see Lee Gannon come down. Like after the incident with him last year, the hamstring. I haven't heard an awful lot about it, but there's good players within Dublin, and Desi Farrell has had an extended panel as always in there, and they've been going off. I didn't even know there was a thing called the development league, but Kildare have it, and Dublin have enough players in there, young players coming through who will be getting exposure to inter-county football, maybe at a lower level, but it tells you that things are still okay in Dublin. Still things are still okay. I don't think they'll be anywhere near Northern Ireland by the end of the year, but they can take great heart from the win over Kerry, despite Kerry being almost, for me, still in the throes of. Sure, it's February. We'll not care too much about it, but for Dublin itself, yeah, they have enough talent in there. Even like anyone who put Sean Bugler into their fantasy football team this year. He was in as a half-back. He gets extra points now. He's rattling off all sorts of scores. They still have players like Costello to come back in. Who I had him on the team, and of course he hasn't played anything, so I had to take him out this weekend. But they still have a breadth of talent within there. They still have a breadth of talent in there. And even speaking of Philly McMahon, on occasions, Philly would tell you there's still good players in Dublin despite the losses they've had.
Yeah, it seems pretty bright. In fairness, the future that Dublin have, even Padro Coffey Byrne, when he's going to come back into the team. Like there are some excellent players around Dublin at club level, at college level, and obviously some of them did do well against Kerry. Larkin O'Dale coming on again, 2 pointers was absolutely brilliant. In fairness, you're saying Derry will win this game, but this is a question for later on in the league campaign. After Derry, you're saying that Derry win the game. Do you think that could get them on the road to survival in Division 1?
Yeah, I think so. I think so because they have a game at the minute that is not too dissimilar to last year. They're still over reliant upon Shane McGuigan to a certain extent, but then Lorcan Murray is starting to crop up a wee bit more, and they still have Kieran McFall is starting to play a bit more football now. McGrogan coming back in the other day is a welcome boost. So he got a wee bit of time. It'll take him time to get up to speed. But I've always thought that Derry haven't, even despite everything last year, I think for long periods of that game against Donegal, they were the better team, and the team who looked like they were more likely to go on to win, and the goals just got them absolutely killed. But then I remember speaking to Aaron from Gaelic Fan TV and said before the Armagh game, says like Mickey Hart's none to lose here by putting out a dummy team. The game's over anyway, and he didn't. And from that point, that's whenever Derry started to change. Their shot counts went, nosedived. And if you're shot, because they wouldn't be the most accurate team, they wouldn't be hitting. They're not like a Cork who can, on a good day hit 85% conversion. Derry aren't that type of team. They'll try and get 29 or 30 shots off and hope to get up around about the 50-60% mark onto it. And you can start to see that in their play. They put Galway to the cosh, and it looked like there was only one team going to win that. And they will take an awful lot of heart from that. The players will start to believe in Tally now. They'll start to be in it. Everyone's talking about Galway in terms of, the serious contenders for All Ireland this year. And there we have Derry should have maybe beat them the other night. So that will be like a win for that team. It's not the same on the scoreboard, but they will be fine. They'll start to get belief in what they're doing again.
Interesting. You've nearly changed my mind to say Derry would beat Dublin because of obviously they are changing style for Mickey Hart a small bit from the end of the season. But
yeah,
no, I'm still going to stick with Dublin. I'm still going to stick with them. I just like the look of them. I liked them against Kerry last week, and I feel like Stacey Farrell seems to be getting a tune out of the new players in particular for Dublin. Looking at the games on Sunday, Division 1, Tyrone against Kerry at 1:45 p.m. in Armagh. This is either the TG Car Player and app, and it is deferred on TG Car TV at around 5:30 in the evening as well. Do you feel this is a relegation 4-pointer, Kevin?
I think certainly for Tyrone it is. I think that Kerry can improve. Kerry are grand for me in terms of going forward. As it says, that they are getting scores despite not having Clifford David in there. They're one of the best forwards in Ireland. They're defensively very poor at the minute. They're at odds on the ends of the back, which is a bit of a surprise whenever you think about Cian being in there, especially coming from a Galway team who was defensively so sound. For Tyrone, I certainly think that if Tyrone don't get the Argyll boys back this weekend, they will be in trouble. I can't see them beating Kerry if they go with the team they had so far this year, and that's despite a good performance against Armagh. You can see whenever Kerry do drop back, they will sit inside the arc. And if you have players like Rory Canavan or Dara Canavan and Peter Hart even who are comfortable kicking scores from 40, 45 yards, they will do that. Niall Morgan, that's going to be a big thing. Niall Morgan's almost been nullified. Armagh certainly nullified him for long periods. He didn't have a huge impact against Mayo at the weekend there. If Kerry are going to sit so far back and not press out, then they're going to invite Tyrone onto him. And it's okay being good going forward, but if you can't close up at the back as well, you will be in trouble for there at the background. But I think I'm less concerned about the away save for Kerry, but certainly for Tyrone, they'll be looking to see where they can pick up points after this, because who's to come? Donegal, the meet Galway, the better teams have yet to come across Tyrone.
Very good point that you made on the Canavans there, and they definitely, I'd agree, they need to come back this weekend if Tyrone are to have any chance of winning. But could you say the same about Kerry in terms of David Clifford? If David Clifford's not starting, do you think Kerry are kind of nullified in a way too?
No, I don't think that they're nullified, because you still have Sean O'Shea, who's very capable of hitting 2-pointers all day long. They're getting decent, not brilliant scores. They're getting decent scores from other players as well as around the pitch. Like I'm looking at it here, whereby Kerry, their expected scores at the minute are around about 20. So they're expected to score about 218 a game. They're getting goals and that's well and good. But 20 for me is an okay number whenever you consider that only Donegal are expected to score more. Donegal at the minute are expected to score 22 points, whereas Tyrone's expected to score at the minute 15. That's a massive difference, 15 scores. They're expected to score roughly 114 a game, whereas Derry or Kerry are expected to score 218 a game. Clifford will only add to that. And I don't think Jack O'Connor will be hugely worried about it. And if you remember the first year that Jack went back and they won the league, and they went on to win the All Ireland. But the last few years, I know Kerry have been looking at league just for performances, and that's why they haven't rushed Gavin White back. They haven't, rushed David Clifford back. They're maybe Morley's a miss for them in the defence there. Maybe if he had been there the other night, maybe they would have stepped out a wee bit more. I know Mike Breen was in there in that centre half role. But no, I think that we're talking about two different things. Tyrone don't have somebody like Sean O'Shea. The next best thing to that is Niall Morgan. And he's not a danger whenever you have slower phases of play that are going on.
Gavin saying here in regards to Clifford, Fossa didn't really get a run this year. And I was surprised David Clifford got a rest. He could have been useful earlier in the league, Gavin means there. And East Kerry didn't get much of a run either. They got knocked out in the semis by Donegal as well. So are you surprised that Clifford's first game this year was against Dublin, and that was only coming onto the pitch?
No, but that's only because I know that Kerry in the past have been looking at the league as performances rather than results. I'm a great believer that the league is around about performance rather than results. And I think David's almost different from Paddy in a way. Paddy would play a game of tiddlywinks. Paddy loves playing football any time of the week, and he doesn't grab the headlines or doesn't get the attention that David gets. And it's almost like at the end of the day, winning the league is okay, it's grand, but it's not the be all and end all. And if you can get maybe 8 absolutely fantastic games out of a well rested David Clifford, it's better than having 15 games of him getting tired. I think we talked about it, but particularly Matthew. I remember we had a conversation that the year that Dublin beat Kerry in that All-Ireland final, Fossa had a long year, and the Clifford's hadn't really stopped. It was almost like fatigue had kicked in for David. I remember that being sort of suggested at that time. That'll not be the case this year. It'll not be the excuse this year. No one will be saying David was tired, because he has had long enough to rest. And I'd be surprised if he started on Sunday against Tyrone. I think they'll take their time still with him coming back.
Is this a sort of a prediction that you'd have to wait for the teams to come out, or do you think Kerry will win it anyway?
No, I think particularly for Tyrone, and it's laughable. The teams come out on the Thursday or Friday, and they're all changed by the. It's going to be interesting to see who's on the Tyrone panel. Even if Tyrone come out with the panel and the Argyll boys are back, look, I think you'll go with it. They will start. I don't think that Molly O'Rourke will want to get relegated in his first year. I think that even just from objectively looking at, they were at one time they were backed into favourites to win the Ulster Championship. I don't think that Molly O'Rourke will want to get off on a relegation going into a championship. I don't think it's the same for Kerry though.
It's an interesting one to predict there. I'm probably going to tip it to Tyrone in the expectation that the Canavans and Hart and possibly Joe Goose will come back into the team. But
you're right on that. That could be, if they are in there, it's a different game.
Yeah, completely. The two boys up front are just brilliant footballers. They kind of changed Tyrone's forward line in particular. And I'm going to say Tyrone, but if the Argyll boys aren't there, probably Kerry. But we'll have to see what happens in the team sheet first of all, and then the game on Sunday itself. The last game in Division 1, chronologically of the weekend, it is Galway against Donegal at 3:45 p.m. in TG Carr, live from Pearse Stadium. You were saying as well of the JMAT podcast on Monday night that this is the game you're most looking forward to, Division 1. I think everybody would say the same thing.
Yeah, and it's not just because they're both sitting, at the top of the tree, so to speak, at the moment. They're both talked about already as being. I've heard people saying it's going to be an All-Ireland final between these two, depending on the draw and stuff like that. But it's just, for me, you have two very contrasting styles of football. One team very, very sound in defence and not breaking any records. Well, no, they are breaking a 2-point record going forward, because 50% of their scores have came from the 2-pointer, particularly from Shane Walsh. But Donegal haven't changed almost anything. They're still going with that aggressive style. We'll score more than you. Whereas Galway are almost like, look, we'll reduce you so much that we only really need to win this game by a point or two. Whereas Donegal we may concede 19 or 20 points, but we're going to hit 25 points. And it'll be really interesting the way that comes up. Remember, the only team that beat Galway last, or the only team that really beat Donegal whenever it came down, whenever it mattered. I know Cork beat them, but whenever it mattered and knocked them out of All-Ireland was Galway. And you heard Jim McGuinness after saying they kept 3 up and it confused us. We didn't know what to do. But let's see what to do this weekend.
We'll have to see, all right. And you mentioned a very good point in terms of Derry kicking loads of shots and whatever they get. Donegal the other day, they scored 21 points. They didn't score any 2-pointers at all. They hit 40 shots against Armagh.
Unreal.
That's even under this new rule system. That's a ridiculous number.
Yeah, it's almost 20. Well, it's 25% more than what they hit last year. Absolutely unreal. They were getting 30, 32 shots. I mean, that was their bread and butter last year. Was a case of go hard, go fast, and they were caught out. They had 10, and they had 10 scores in the first half against Galway in the semi-final, and that was reduced to 6 in the second half because they couldn't get in around about that day. Ramacud, and he was almost nullified in that game. But yeah, look, it's going back to that old thing where Jim McGuinness clearly looked at his numbers and says, you may have a ball for 2-3 minutes, get 1 shot off, and you have 2 points on it. We can get 3 shots off within that 3 minutes and get 3 points. He certainly looked at the mobs and says he knows what his weakness are. Yes, Michael Langan can hit scores, Paddy McBeardy can hit scores, Murphy can hit those scores. Ram Hughes already hit one, a nice wee one. He's already hit. So there's players in that team can hit it, but they're already low percentage. And particularly you're talking about the wind in February and everything like that. Donegal's game this year will be to rack up 23, 24, 25 scores of high efficiency scores. Their game plan won't change.
Yeah, exactly. Like it is ridiculous numbers. There's no doubt about it as well. And then we're talking about ridiculous numbers from an individual player for Galway. Shane Walsh, out of 2 pointers, he's got 8 in 3 games.
Unreal.
Like
He looks like
that's
he's loving
crazy.
football.
This kind of football, it suits him, doesn't it?
It does, and he's smiling. If you remember, even where he went in the midfield, for that one against Mayo, where they popped it off the right corner back, right half back from Mayo was dragged into the middle, and Shane Walsh walked onto the pitch and stuck it over. He was just almost laughing. He looked like there was a weight of the world was off his shoulders. He looked like he was just loving football, and he doesn't look. He's like Rory McIlroy whenever he hits those bloody 2 pointers. They're just that. If that was me, I'd be out of breath even just trying to kick him. My legs be busted, and he's just swinging them over like a 5 iron. Like it's lovely to watch.
And another guy with 2 pointers on his mind, in fairness, 4 2 pointers for Killian O'Correen. He's really stepped up. I know we talk all about Shane Walsh, but that young man's really stepped up, hasn't he, as well?
Fantastic, especially if you think that they've almost been not over reliant on it, but Damien Comer's obviously been a big scorer for them for the years, but then there's the injuries that come with them. Shane Walsh had it hard maybe last year and a half, 2 years, because the injuries come with it. And then you have Finnerty as well, who was doing really well, but injuries plagued him. So the fact that we have another young lad coming in is only brilliant for Galway. It's fantastic for Galway. McDade can score. Big Maher's probably not renowned from his scoring, but he will get up in there. But to have young players coming through and taking, it's a bit like Hand in Roscommon, Connor Hand. These young players are starting to express themselves. It's almost like Puddock, Joyce says, and you're a cracking footballer, go and enjoy it. Whereas in other counties, I know in my own county, I've heard people say, he shouldn't be taking that shot, he's too young. If you're telling a 19 or 20-year-old not to take a shot, he's never going to develop. He's never going to show his true potential. So it's great to see.
Exactly, yeah. It's brilliant from a Galway point of view that they have not one but 2 long kickers in the 2-point range. But like Donegal themselves, talking about 2 pointers, I've recorded Donegal have only 5 2 pointers, and they got none against Armagh as well.
No,
and they rely really, yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to they don't need to at the minute. Against Galway, they most likely will. I wouldn't be surprised if I seen that Armagh or Donegal's maybe got 5 2-pointers here at the weekend. I would put that in as a decent number, simply because they're coming up against a really solid defence. So you still haven't conceded a goal, and I know Donegal haven't scored a goal. So Galway haven't conceded a goal because they're so solidly found. They still have. I would be concerned about Galway in the long run. I do think Galway are at risk of having not progressed since last year. I still don't think they're scoring enough. They've hit 51 scores in total. 50% of those have been 2-pointers. That means they've only hit somewhere in the region of 38 actual scores, which would bring them down in line with Mayo and line with Tyrone and stuff like that. They're just so good. I mean, like Shane Walsh just so good at it. But they're the Donegal stuff that this is why this weekend's game is going to be really intriguing. I would love it to be championship time, because I think at that point you have to show your hand. I don't think Jim McGinnis or Joyce will show their complete hand, but we'll start to see things that Donegal are trying that to overcome Galway from last year, because it's the only thing that they have done differently from last year is to bring Michael Murphy back.
So what are you predicting to who do you think will win this game, or could it be a draw?
I think it'll be a draw. I do think it'll be a draw. And I think, look, if you're a betting man, I think an out €5 on a draw would be welcome. To think it'll be that sort of nip and tuck game. I think that if there was to be a winner on it, I think Donegal will win. But I think it'll be close enough that it draws, the most likely outcome in it.
Yeah, it's really tight what they call. The draw is kind of a cop out, really. Here I'm going to go for a draw as well. I'm going to go for a draw. It's too tight to call, but yeah, that should be probably one of the games of the weekend if we're looking for quality and in terms of being top of Division 1 and all that. But that is the Division 1 wrapped up in the Allianz Football League. Moving on to Division 2, it is Monaghan against Cork and Grattan Park in the Skene on Sunday at 1:30. I am making the long trip to go to this game, so hopefully the Rebels will do the business in this one. But you talked about Cork in the last few weeks, Kevin, and Yeah, you referenced my stats and things like that as well over the last few weeks, and saying the Cork, they got 21 shots off against Meath. I think it was a similar number against Down. That number went up against Westmeath. They got 35 shots off, and they have a guy up front now, Chris Oak-Jones, 3-4 from play the last day, 5-8 from playing 3 games. But Monaghan are doing well as well. 2 wins out of possible 3. Did okay at stages against Roscommon. And both sides are on 4 points. So you feel like whoever wins this game might have a foothold on promotion, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's good to see Cork having those high. The only thing that's ever concerned me about Cork is that they have the low shot count and rely on the high conversion rate, which isn't always possible. If you have an off day and you're shooting, as I seen against Down, where they maybe I think they still had a higher conversion rate than Down that day. I think they were like 59%, whereas Down were only 56. The difference was that actually Down had just had a few more shots on them. So maybe that's something that they've looked at and said, like, we need to be shooting more despite what the outcome might be onto it. I would be confident in Cork. I think if that is true, if they have actually sat down and said, right, we're going to have to trust you a bit more to shoot, we're going to have to shoot on site a bit more. You know, I think that they will cause, let's call it an upset. I know that the Monaghan are heavy favourites within the bookies on it, but I don't know what it is about Monaghan. I'm not impressed by Monaghan. I think that they're over reliant still on Rory Began, which I don't like to see. I think it's okay if you have quality footballers up in there and your keepers maybe chipping in 1 or 2. But we've seen without the Canavans that Tyrone have become overly reliant upon Niall Morgan, and they're suffering for that too. And I think Monaghan are in the same boat. I do think Monaghan are the same boat. Monaghan are getting goals. I think they've hit 2 goals in every single game, which is good, from their perspective. David Garland has had a good season, and it's all I don't know Mike Sigerson's medals. David Garland have, it must be 3 or 4 at least. He's been on and around about the Monaghan team for a long time and hasn't really lived up to an awful lot. And you can, maybe that's just living in the shadow of Conor McManus, or maybe not getting exposure. He is a good footballer, but I think now he's probably at a lower level. He's getting a wee bit more freedom, and obviously the new rules coming in, getting more freedom as well. But I think that if Cork have turned a corner, they could be the team to overcome Monaghan, but start Monaghan really degressing. I don't like the fact that Brannigan's in there, and he's been in for a wee while, and they haven't changed their football an awful lot. I like the manager coming in. You already see what Brennan's bringing to Meath in terms of changing their football. What do you call him? The Loud manager done last year in terms of bringing Loud in as well. You changing football and getting the refreshment. I don't think Monaghan have done that, and I think that their performance, their results have maybe clouded their performances over the last 3 games. Roscommon, if they lose to Cork, Monaghan can kiss promotion bye bye. They can kiss any progress for the next 3 or 4 years bye bye.
Interesting, really. Look, I had on Southern Star podcast this week, we had a guest, Stephen Galogly, a former Monaghan footballer, and he was largely positive about Monaghan football, and he was saying that even a few years of Division 2 would help this team. But you think the opposite, would you?
Yeah, but simply because they haven't been ripping up an awful lot of trees underage for a wee while now. I think that their club football is dominated by Scottstown, and that's not always a good thing. We've seen Kilcoo and Down regress an awful lot. From where down Armagh, even whenever Cross were winning championships, Armagh went into shell themselves for 10 years, sort of halfway through the noughties, and have only really now started to come out, which is why they end up down Division 4 or stuff like that. I don't like to see, and Antrim the same. Antrim didn't do an awful lot while St. Gauls were dominating. Now we're regressing again with Corgan. But I don't like to see a club team dominating so much, because I think it ultimately affects your county team going down the line. And I think that we I think we can be misguided by results. I do think we can be misguided by results. Monaghan were very poor last year, and they haven't done an awful lot to change that. They're just playing, unfortunately. They're just playing, obviously, weaker opposition. Let's call it that. They're playing Division 2 opposition as opposed to Division 1. And without changing their style of football, they have been able to get the results. But if they can't get over the line against Cork the next day, maybe they'll start to wake up and say something's wrong. I think Down will beat them as well, and I think Meath will come up into Meath. Yeah, Meath is still to play Monaghan, and I think with this new style of Meath that Monaghan will not be able to do it. And I can't see, apart from maybe Down, I'm not sure, maybe Louth, or sorry, maybe Cavan. They've already got points off them, and maybe Down is where they're going to pick up other points if they don't get points this weekend.
Do you think Cork will do enough to win this game? Or do you think Monaghan will just get over the line, given home advantage?
If I'm being truthful, I hope Cork do enough. I think I love seeing that. I mean, a bit like Kildare, Meath, and Leinster. I just love to see like other provinces start to put a kick up a backside again and get good teams out there. And I think that it will do the GAA and football a really good service if Cork can get their act together and put in performances week after week and start to get up towards that Division 1, because unfortunately for Cork, they've just been that hit or miss for a long time now, and it's almost like they just need to put a few performances together, get a couple of results together, and all of a sudden you're probably potentially talking about them actually competing against Kerry again and Munster and stuff like that, which is only good for football. So with hand on heart, I do hope that Cork do get over the line, and I think they can.
Interesting. Like yourself, Aaron Prendergast said Cork will get over the line. I just have this funny feeling that Cork will do it as well. I don't know what it is. I just feel like with the games against Westmeath and with the games against Meath, if we played those games last year, we probably would have lost. So I think there might be a change in the guard with Cork, and I feel like Monaghan have to keep a leash on Chris Oak. If they don't do that, I think they could struggle. Like Chris Oak averages a goal a game at this stage, or even two. So it's going to be very, very tough for Monaghan in that regard. But I just feel like Cork could do enough to get over the line. I might eat my words, but we'll have to see. Two comments in here. Liam White saying, geez, first down. No, Monaghan, you deserve a medal for full respect. Full respect, yeah. But to be fair, Kevin was down in Offaly last weekend, so he does as well from an Antrim point of view. Gavin O'Reilly saying, saw Monaghan against Cavan and Roscommon. Began's a big part of their style and his class and fairness. How could he not? So, yeah, we'll have to see what does happen in regards to Rory Began this weekend and how Cork counteract that. Another two teams that are on more than 4 points, 4 points and 6 points as well, are Meath and Roscommon. They meet in Park Talton on Sunday at 2:45. Is this a game that Meath could win? I know Roscommon are putting up trees in Division 2, but Meath looks serious at the moment, in fairness, and Robbie Brennan seems to be doing a good job there.
Yeah, and I think that they've certainly turned a corner in terms of working on their strengths. He's just seen even the size of them on TV against Down was a massive, he's a massive squad of players in there, and that's without even Costello, who's arguably one of the best forwards in the country. That's without him being in there, and I certainly think that Meath, whenever they were pressing Down's kick out, and for a long period in that second half, Down just couldn't get out, and it was just score after score after score. They maybe aren't as great at the back. No problem saying that. I think that their footballers at the back maybe aren't what you would get in the likes of Kerry or even in Dublin, just confident footballers. I think Roscommon might have the upper hand on them that way. But I think that if Meath go out with the intention of being aggressive, trying to rack up as many shots as possible, I think they could beat Roscommon. However, Roscommon are littered with talent, and they're a team who this is their bread and butter. Even if the new rules hadn't come in, Roscommon would have been doing well in Division 2. We know that Roscommon will spend a year down here, go up into Division 1 for a year or two, back down, and that has been the way anyway. But you have younger players like Conor Hahn now, who's last week I think he chipped in with North 3. You have the Murders in there who were not yet between them. They have a good spread of players who are shooting from distance, taking scores, and they seem to be really enjoying their football as well. I'm still not a fan of Davy Burke. I think he can mince his words too much, but I think Connacht or I think that Connacht is definitely on the radar for Roscommon this year. I would fancy them to win Connacht this year, but I think that if there is going to be a fly in the ointment in the league this year, they're on the fall at one stage, then it's going to be against Meath. That's the only team who are going to stop them.
Yeah, it is going to be a very interesting game, there's no doubt. I think Monaghan, Meath have done really, really well in the Division 2. Obviously, 40 shots off against Cork. Similar numbers in the next 2 games as well. Even with no Costello, they're absolutely doing brilliantly with Jordan Morris up front. Rory Kinsler, if he does play as well, is racking up some good numbers. Like Billy Hogan has perfected the role of the goalkeeper now. But I just feel like Roscommon are just too good at the moment. And it's a different situation for Roscommon and Monaghan. Monaghan maybe unsure about themselves a bit. Roscommon, they look serious. And even with the new rules, they kind of look even better. And Gavin is a proud Roscommon man. He's commenting here. Watching the Roscommon clubs in under 20s in the last few years, it's great to see the progression in depth at senior level, and we've seen that with Conor Hand last week. So yeah, Roscommon are really excelling in that department. Look at Louth against Down is the next game at 2:30 in Division 2 on Sunday. This is on in Drogheda. Do you feel like both sides have to win this to keep the promotion hopes alive?
A safety promotion as opposed to, or safety being able to stay in Division 2 as opposed to being promoted in Division 1. I don't think either are on the radar to get promoted to Division 1 now. I think Down have been putting in good performances. You know, they put in a good performance against Roscommon. You've Big Pat in there is excelling at the minute with the 2-pointers. For long periods of the game, they looked out against me, but then they did come back and pushed it, towards sort of the third quarter anyway, or towards the end of the third quarter. They started to look like they were getting back on top. The only problem with Down, I think, is that they have the young lad Burns in there. It's his second game he's played. He's only 19. And they're not a team who are going to dominate around about the middle. They only had 33% retention on their own long kickouts the last day. And against any other team apart from Meath, you could probably push that up to 50. But with such a young lad and that, they're not going to try an awful lot of shorts. Now, the 3 shorts that they tried off the other day came off, and they retained them and they got them up the pitch. Didn't come to anything. But they have some serious footballers in Down. I think Conor Lafferty, even as, if you heard, Carter O'Kane had interviewed him after and says, look, Meath had the ball there for 3 minutes whenever the black card. What do you do? And Conor was asked questions. Will you press out? You get caught out. If you don't press out, they have it. If you go left, try and pop. Conor was asking questions of it, and that to me is a great manager. He's already thinking about how are we going to improve in this. There's a good team of Cian Mina and around about him too. They know their strengths, but they can't get fully exploit them yet, because their strength is short ball out and working up the pitch, a bit like Kilkenny. That is their style of football. It's almost like that Donegal way. For me, they're better positioned to beat Louth, because obviously Craig Lennon's a big loss to Louth. But Louth, I don't know whether it's the bounce factor. With Jared Brand last year, they done really well. Some of their performances were excellent, but they just don't seem to be turning it on so far this year. They're over-reliant, as many teams have over-reliant on one person. They're over-reliant on Big Mulroy up the top there. I just don't like it whenever a manager's almost every week in the paper saying, oh, the rules this and the rules that. He's almost deflecting from his own team's performances. And even if you look like, whereas it Down the other night had 34 attacks with 70% shot to phase. If they can increase that by maybe 5 or close to 10%, they're going to be up in the almost a phase whereby they can't be caught. If you look at their Down's expected scores at the minute are 20 per game. They're expected to concede 22 scores a game. So there's no, but that's a big skew with, because of what happened in Roscommon. They conceded 3 goals against Roscommon, 2 the week before. They didn't concede any last week against me. They'll take great heart from that. That young lad Burns and Nats will take a great heart from it as well. And I think that Down will win this game, knowing that promotion is out of the way, but that they get another year in Division 2 to build on. Conor Lafferty wants to be in Division 1. He wants to be in Sam McGuire football every single year, and they will use as a building block to get up in there.
Do you think Down will win this game, so?
Yeah. I think Down will win this game, and I think that they'll win it okay. I think they'll win by a few in hand anyway. I think they'll probably win by about 4.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Down as well. Louth seem to be another team that are just not grasping to the new rules either. And Down, Pat Avern, what a weapon to have in terms of the 2-pointer. I think 28 points so far across the Allianz League. I think he's the joint top scorer with Sean O'Connor from Tipperary across the whole 4 divisions. So definitely a brilliant player to have at your disposal there. The last game at Division 2 with East Westmeath against Cavan on Sunday at 2 p.m. in Cusack Park in Mullingar. If Westmeath are to win a game, is this their best bet?
Yeah. The better rivalry there with obviously Dermot McCabe, and he was involved with the Cavan, or they won Ulster back during the COVID years. Obviously a Cavan legend, but Cavan for me are probably again perhaps better placed to win this game. They've they're shooting a bit more. They big Roy McKernan back in there who racked up a good rate of scores the other day. They seem to be well balanced this year. They seem to be that they're at least consistent in their performances. They're hitting regularly 0-20 a game. Westmeath had good scoring against Cork at the weekend. Not so good the week before. I think that it'll be a tough challenge for Westmeath this year to go into it, but they're certainly fighting for everything that they have. And if they are going to get us a win, it has to be against Cavan at home. But I don't know if I see it. I think Cavan will come away with a win for that.
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to go for Westmeath to win it. So I feel like I looked at them last week and I feel like a scalp is coming. And I think this is the game which they'll target. And I think they'll catch Cavan in this game and get back in the hunt for survival just before we get on to Division 3, Division 4. Gavin saying an interesting side note that Cork beat Meath, Down beat Cork, and Meath beat Down. And they were lower scorelines as well, I think 4 points or under. So it does show how Division 2 is so evenly matched in a way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, Division 2, there's something to fight for. Division 1, apart from staying up, I know I was talking to Finian Hanley, you were on the call with Finian Hanley the other day, and he was saying about that Galway would like to win league because they haven't won it from 81. But for those teams up in Division 1, I almost feel like it's almost almost that they're working on performance, whereas there's something tangible in the other leagues. And that's even, take Kildare Division 3, who are maybe wrongly placed in there, Leitrim wrongly placed in there, they should be down in Division 4. There's some seriously competitive games throughout it. And definitely, that Meath, Cork down, down Meath. It is a good summary to have. I think from speaking to down people, they were disappointed in the Cork performance that day, and they said they felt that Cork could have done a lot better. And maybe that for Cork is their kick up the backside to say, actually, we can do better and we have to be a bit more consistent on it.
To be fair, the first half wasn't too bad from a Cork point of view, but the second half kind of let us down a small bit. And even then, with Cork performing badly, we could have won it in the last minute with Brian O'Driscoll attempting a 2-pointer. So, it does show, it actually gives me more confidence, to be honest. We're not too far away if we do produce some good performances. And Gavin saying another comment in here, for Cavan, big weekend. If they lose, relegation is a strong possibility. But if they win, Meath lose, and Cork and Monaghan draw, promotion isn't impossible. So, yeah, we should see what happens in Division 2. Moving on to Division 3, Division 4, and obviously the games, as always, are below in the ticker. We'll start off in Division 3. Your own county, Kevin Antrim, are at home this weekend to Leitrim. That's on at 2:30. I'd imagine you're going to that game. Kildare are up against Laois in a Leinster Midlands derby. That's at 7 p.m. in St. Conleth's Park in Newbridge. Sligo against Clare in Markovich Park at 1:30 is on Sunday. And Fermanagh against Offaly in Brewster Park is also on Sunday at 2 p.m. Just on the Antrim game, you would expect Antrim to win that. I would imagine, Kevin, if you don't win that, I don't know what will happen then. But two interesting games there. Kildare against Laois, obviously a Midlands derby there. And Sligo against Clare. You'd have to imagine Sligo have to get points on the board sooner rather than later.
Yeah, they do. They need to. Obviously, McEntee's not happy with the way things have been going for him. He's certainly not even talking about the results. He says the performances aren't there for a team that we think we are. The players think they're better than what the performance has done. I think we're better than what the performance has done. So I think, I had Sligo down to be promoted this year. Things were going in that great way. If they don't get a result this weekend, they're in big trouble. Big trouble. They could find themselves down. And from a selfish Antrim point of view, I welcome it. We've got 2 points on the board so far. We'll get 4 before the weekend's out, with just the predicament Leitrim find themselves in, unfortunately. But yeah, if Sligo don't start getting wins somewhere, then it's good night Irene for them.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very difficult for Sligo if they don't get a win this weekend. But an interesting weekend in Division 3. Just before we get out to Division 4, news broke that apparently Antrim have won the battle, that Corgan Park will host Antrim and Armagh in the Ulster Senior Football Championship quarter-final. Right decision?
Yeah, it is. There's work to be done. It's not a science they delivered yet. There's there's commitments need done to it in terms of increasing the capacity. And that's certainly be done if you. Whereas where Kerrigan is, there's a stand on one side that's fully concrete, and the back of the nets there's space, and there's space to the other flank as well. But they're banks, they're people would stand on them, and obviously they're not accepting of those for safety reasons for Ulster. But temporary stand can be put in there for their Ulster Council stand to make 100 grand, 140 grand off this game. I would say for the cuts of maybe 30 or 40,000 pound, they will get temporary standing that could increase the capacity for that game by maybe 3 or 4,000. But yeah, right decision. We look, Antrim are in a bad place, but not casement is one of the things on it, and there's no sign of that being done in a way. Every so often it pops up, but even we would have had different groups and stuff here, but I'm pushing it at one stage. That all just seems to have been deflated. Unfortunately, you would have been having public meetings about it, every updates on every 6 months or so. That it all just seemed to be the air's been taken out of it. I don't know. I mean, at the minute, I wouldn't have any confidence in casement getting built.
Definitely not, and you will have to see what happens in regards to that project in the next few years, definitely. But I suppose the Cork Park thing, it is the right decision. Even though I seen a few Armagh fans were complaining on Twitter, or X as it's called now, about not getting tickets, season ticket holders. There was one fan in particular that was very unhappy with the outcome. But look, Antrim deserve home advantage. They were pulled out of the hat first. End of discussion, and
Right.
surely everybody could see that. You have opinion on that?
As an Antrim man, look, and this is me being honest, it's a no contest. The game isn't. We are going to be lucky to stay within 20 points. If you're an Armagh fan, yes, I can understand that you want to get to the games and stuff like that. It's going to be on TV, or it's going to be on the BBC iPlayer. It's a All Ireland contenders playing a team who are lucky to stay in Division 3 this year. It's not going to be a classic. It's not Donegal. It's not Tyrone. It's not Derry. You have bigger fish to fry later on. Just swallow the pill and move on.
Yeah, well said, definitely. And hopefully the Armagh fans are listening to this podcast indeed. Moving on to Division 4 and the games this weekend is Tipperary against London at 5 p.m. in FBD Semple Stadium. That's the first of a double header with the hurling, which we're going to discuss in just a little while. Carlow against Limerick in Watch Cullen Park at 6 p.m. on Saturday evening is on as well. Then on Sunday, we have Longford against Waterford at 2 p.m. in Glen Brothers Pierce Park, and then Wexford against Wicklow at 2 p.m. in Wexford Park, Chadwick's Wexford Park, that is. I feel like Wexford Wicklow is probably the highlight of the weekend in Division 4.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. Obviously, Wicklow will be disappointed with their performance of the result against Louth. Otherwise, they'd be sitting both neck on neck. Whoever wins this game, I think both teams will get promoted, but whoever wins this game will certainly be the ones who believe that if and when they do meet in the Division 4 final, that they'll have a wee step up for it. But Wexford are shooting the lights out at the minute. I know Antrim played them in a challenge game at the start of the year before it kicked off, and they're speaking to some of the management team there, and they said they were flying, absolutely flying. They were more impressed with Wexford than what they were with Louth. That's how good Wexford, just in terms of adapting to the rules and stuff, were there. So I would really expect Wexford to win it. Be surprised if Wicklow actually get over the line on it.
I'll probably go for Wexford as well, and be interested to see if Tipperary can get another win as well and get themselves at 7 points out of possible 8. That should be very interesting to see as well. And as we move away from the football, there's a few hurling games as well, so we'll discuss them. First of all, it is Tipperary against Cork in FBD Semple Stadium at 7:30 p.m. live on RT2. In Thurles, obviously, Tip have done well at the start of the league campaign under Liam Cahill. Obviously lost to Limerick the last day out, but have unearthed a few gems, including Shawnee Keneally, who scored 1-3 and scored a magnificent goal in the Gaelic grounds the last day. Cork, on the other hand, well, Tipperary have had 20 different scores in the league so far. Cork have had, I think it's 11 or 12, which is a bit underwhelming, and maybe Pat Ryan needs to broaden his panel a bit, especially with Patrick Powers out now for the whole season with a torn cruciate ligament. So it should be an interesting game at the weekend. It probably will show where Tip are really at in a way, do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly where teams are at this time of the year, but certainly you're talking about the range of scores and stuff. And I was reading an article by Liam says, just today, that a few times last year he could have went in and took a few under 20s up, but he didn't. He left them for another year to sort of mature into it. And he seems to be getting the reward from that, picking out a few young players who have actually stepped up this year as well. The problem with the Cork side of things, and all right, it'll not be a huge problem if they outscore them. If they only have 4 scores on Saturday and they outscore Tipperary, you wouldn't be crying about it. But I like to see a better spread of players, just in case, unfortunately, cruciates and things happen. Just in case something does happen, that your team, your game plan doesn't have to go completely out the window. You can replace almost like for like in a way.
Actually, Derek Lynch mentioned a very good point, actually, from Clare FM, saying that bringing on Patrick Horgan for the injured Patrick Power in the Limerick game in the first half, it was almost a sign we were going kind of backwards in a way, when we should be going forwards with the young, talented players that we do have at our disposal, the likes of Dermot Healy from Liscool, the likes of Jack Halland, the likes of Daniel Hogan. Should these guys be given more of an opportunity? I know Hoggy wants to win in All Ireland, and who would blame him? But should this be an opportunity to bring in more of the younger players and save Hoggy for the championship?
Well, it goes back to that, what is your purpose in the leagues? Do you want to win a Division 1 league or Division 2 league, 1A and 1B? Or do you want to, you're not going to come out of Division 1A and drop into Division 2. You're going to go down to 1B or whatever it might be. You're going to still get relatively competitive games. So it has to be what your aim is. I always think that, and that's why I'm not worried about what Kerry are doing in terms of the football side of things. They're getting young players in there. They're getting players in there who will obviously stand them good later on come the championship. And I would always be one for the league is about playing. It's about performances. And if it means bleeding younger players through to get them ready for championships, the last thing you want to do is bring a young, imagine this was a championship game and you were looking to a young player to come on in the third list, or I don't know, thousands of people there, warm hot day in the middle of May. That'll be a toxic environment for him to come into. Whereas you bring him in this time of year, and if he does well, he does well. If they don't get the win, you can still give him positive feedbacks on the results in terms of his own performance, and say there's more games we won this year. So yes, I mean, a bit like the David Clifford stuff. Do you want the best Polyhoid, going, or do you want to win a game on a Saturday night in the middle of February?
Yes, that's a dilemma really for Pat Ryan, because Cork haven't won a league title since I think 98 or 99. So, like, you'd probably want to win a league sooner rather than later, and you want to get a trophy on the board. But then again, you need to build the panel as well. And Liam White comes in with a very good comment here. I still think Jack Leahy should be part of the panel. Top scorer for play in the Fitzgibbon Cup as well as Donegal man. And he was playing for UL as well. Like, that's another guy that really should step up. And with Cork's under 20 talents, obviously beating Offaly 2 years ago, Tip have unearthed a few gems in this league campaign and still have their main players. The likes of Jake Morris and Darragh McCarthy is turning into a main man for Tipperary. So like, it can be done.
Yeah, it can. I mean, even look at the whenever Cork beat Limerick last year, that for that county was just for Ireland. It was just like, Jesus, where did they come from in a way? But it was building, and they haven't really kicked on as such. You would expect then that boys be chopping at the bit to get onto the panel, because they're not a kick in the arse off. So the taking Liam McCarthy back down into Cork. So I don't know whether it is with Cork. You maybe think that maybe they've not underperformed as such, but they haven't really kicked on yet from their glory days of beating Limerick and all the excitement that came with that.
Early days, but I would agree with you at the early stages of the league, and this game could be the catalyst for that in pushing on. Do you think Cork could beat Tipperary, or do you think Tipperary will carry on their kind of mini resurgence?
Yeah, I think that things just seem to be going right. There seems to be better performances in Tipperary. I would be betting, if I was thinking about who's going to come out in this, I would think that Cork, it's a question mark over them, and if Tipperary can get in it, it'll be a massive push for them and their panel that they're bringing through this year. I think that they will get over the line.
Yeah, I'd actually go for Tip as well. But having said that, Cork could beat them in the championship. That's on a Park Keefe in the Munster Championship. So that's all that matters really. But I think Tip will carry on their mini resurgence and win this game on Saturday evening. On Sunday then, Kilkenny will play Limerick in Nolan Park on Sunday at 1:45 live at TG Cahir. Limerick seem to be back at their best, even without the lads back. Obviously, Aidan O'Connor scored 5 points last day against Tipperary, and Patrick O'Donovan coming up to the mantle as well. That's without even not mentioning Aaron Gallan, who's on the bench and things like that as well. Garrod Hagerty's probably going to be out for the foreseeable with a broken hand as well. And Dermot Burns obviously performed very well for wing-back for Tipperary, against Tipperary, should I say. Like, once Limerick are bringing through these young talented players to add on to the likes of Gallan and the Hagertys, the Tom Morrisseys, that's a dangerous prospect for the rest of the country.
Yeah, and they've put an awful lot of work and effort into their player pathways and their development plans. And the guy who was speaking about earlier on, Carver, who's actually he's from um, Belfast here, he's from up the Falls Road. He was down with Limerick for, I think it was 5 or 6 years. He was in Limerick for, and a lot of his work would have been to do with the development squad. So he's obviously a strength condition for the senior squad, but they would have complemented their work with working with the development teams and the academies coming through. And it all is that long-term succession planning. And that's a problem with Limerick. They have the players underage who can step up and really, whereas some teams maybe have to go through a generational shift or a transition, and their performances drop for a way. But Limerick don't become a bad team overnight, and they're certainly going back to the well to say, okay, what can we do to make us even better this year? And bringing those young players through, it can only stand them in good stead for later on in the year. It's scary to think what they have coming through actually comparing to a lot of other counties.
Yeah, it's actually scary. And you look at UL's success at the Fitzgibbon Cup as well. Like, and a few Limerick players were involved. Even the likes of Colin Coughlin, Adam English, Carl O'Neill played a bit of a part as well. Like, and again, that's not even mentioned Cian Lynch, William O'Donoghue, Darragh O'Donovan still has to go back into the team. Like, it's just endless, really. And Liam is commenting here, I'll be at the game this Sunday, and I have to say, if Limerick perform, will some of these younger lads like English, O'Donovan, etc., then I feel like Kilkenny might struggle. And just on Kilkenny, I think we're both predicting Limerick to win the game. Do you think it'll be a boost to Kilkenny hurling if they manage to get a win this weekend, or do you think they'll not care too much?
I don't think they'll care an awful lot, but unfortunately Kilkenny for the last, they've been living in the shadows of Limerick for the last number of years, and that's not like Kilkenny if you think about what they have been done in their whole history, maybe even recent history as well. So what they'll not want to do is to lose to a team that is bleeding young players. That will be a massive kick in the shin for them. Like if they don't get a win this weekend at home to a relatively inexperienced team in terms of the total number of Irons that they have in there, then I think that there'll be question marks over Kilkenny and where they go next. Different if it was away. If they had to go down to Limerick and play that way, and they were beat in Limerick's sort of back garden, I think that is a different proposition. But going to Nolan Park, the home of hurling, with a very young and inexperienced, I say inexperienced, it's not inexperienced, it's just an experience compared to what they have in reserve or still waiting to come back into it. If Kilkenny can't get a win this weekend, then it's going to set them back a bit, I feel.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that as well. And I'd say Limerick will win this game in general this weekend. Clare Wexford is next. Both sides are on 0 points. This isn't shown anywhere in terms of TV. It's on at 3:45 in Cusack Park in Ennis. Would you be worried about Clare? I think Clare will probably be favourites going into this game. They're on 0 points at the moment. Yes, they still have guys to come back. Tony Kenny only came on for a brief moment against Galway, scored a point to be fair. But like, if Clare, play devil's advocate, if Clare were to lose this game, would you be worried about them this year?
I don't think they will lose again. I'm worried about Wexford. But I don't think they will lose this game, but I do think there's question marks over Clare. I don't think Galway are, putting themselves up in there in terms of winning All Irelands this year. There's certainly a lot of question marks over them. Maybe the hangover from the All Ireland. Maybe they're just pondering about and they want to go back and they realise that they don't need a really successful league campaign. But if they don't win, they're in trouble. It's as simple as that. If they do, particularly to Wexford, who haven't been doing well this year, if they don't get a win this weekend, then it's hard to see where, unless they get boys back, how they're going to get any points the rest of the league, or how they're going to actually build on the rest of the league without going down.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I'd go for Clare to win this game as well. Wexford have been just dogged with injuries. It's just unfortunate for them. Hopefully, they like the lead chain, Roy O'Connor, Conor McDonald, all them come back for the championship, and Cian Bird gains a bit of form going into the championship from their point of view. But I think Clare will win this game as well. Moving on to Division 1B, we have Dublin against Offaly in Croke Park at 5:15 on Saturday evening. Is this a scout that Offaly could take? I know Adam Screeney's injured at the moment. They still have some good players. They are performing well. They hammered Antrim the last step. Sorry to mention that, Kevin, but but they seem to be going well enough in fairness, Offaly. So do Dublin, to be fair, under Neil O'Callaghan. So it should be an interesting game, this.
Yeah, look, I would fancy Dublin to win it. I just think there's a resurgence of hurling in Dublin at the minute. They putting in some very good performances. Even you talk about the Antrim defeat to Offaly. Antrim were absolutely hammered by Dublin as well, and that maybe about championship time that does happen, but the last few years in the league, it's only been a point here and 2 points there. It's usually competitive games, but they absolutely wiped the floor with Antrim. Were found all sorts of pockets of space. Um, Awfully done almost the exact same, but I think that the conditions that Antrim found themselves, Antrim are still trying to find their feet. They're they're not in a good place right now, but I just think that obviously with what Na Fianna done in the club hurling this year, there's still a few players to come back in there. I just feel that Dublin are on a bit of a crest of a wave at the minute, and all people had to be on top of their game to overcome them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go for Dublin as well. They seem to be going very well in terms of Na Fianna winning the club championship. I know most of the Offaly team were actually involved in DCU, but even to have that college base in Dublin, to get to the Fitzgibbon final, I think it's going to be a massive boost to Dublin hurling. And Neil O'Callaghan did say in an interview that AJ Murphy is eventually going to come in, and he's live work for Davina. So, yeah, I'd probably go for Dublin, and they look to be in a good state this year. We'll move on to Antrim next, Kevin. They're at home this weekend in Cork Park. They're up against Waterford at 1:30 p.m. live on the BBC iPlayer and GA Go. Interesting opponents here. Davies' team from last year. Just in general, Kevin, how's it going with Davy this year? Is it going okay, or how do you think it's going?
Um, no, look, I think that they'd be at Westmeath, and they would have been expected to be at Westmeath. It probably hasn't been the greatest introduction, you know, to for Davy, but I think that the problem is that he's brought a team together who maybe don't have any success at coaching. And I mean this in this way possible. He brought Aaron Graffin in there, who was with Down Camogues. And this isn't anything, Camogie or hurling. He's with Down Camogues with Paul Donnelly, who was playing, I think they were playing Division 3 Camogie whenever he first went into him. He brought in young lad Shivers, Paddy Shivers, who was in charge of the under 20s last year, who had underperformed. They lost out last year to Derry, which was a shock. Um, and then Neil McManus is in as the sort of performance coach, whatever way he tried to explain it all. I just don't think I don't think there's enough experience within that team to be delivering quality sessions. Now, you read the papers and you hear the environment's good and boys are arriving in before the training starts a couple of hours early. They're maybe finishing off even work, doing a bit of remote work, and the music's pumping and all that jazz. But that's okay. They might be friendly enough and best mates and all that jazz, but it's not resulting in the work in the pitches at the minute. I mean, if you have big Jared Walsh playing as a corner back, Jared Walsh is 6'2". Built he's not a corner, he's not a corner back, and even if you have him sweeping in there, that's my biggest problem. Is I do think Darren Gleeson took on them as far as he could take them, but with Davy, for me, you bring in a style of hurling that he's trying to make Antrim play, even though it's not the Antrim strengths. And that to me is a red flag. You heard about the stories in Waterford where players actually had to turn and say, this doesn't suit us way of playing. They changed it, and all of a sudden the performance is doing it. Antrim won't have players of that caliber who will stand up and say, actually, this isn't working. And I just think you're trying to force a round peg into a square hole. That's my feeling on.
Is there worries as well that this could, like, even in championship time, that we seen with Davy Fitzgerald having goals with referees in the Munster Championship last year, even in the Clare game last season as well, when Waterford were disappointed in losing that game. Could there be a danger that it won't be all about Antrim hurlers or whatever, like the Gerard Walshes, like the Shani Litz? It'll be all about the Davy show.
There's some brilliant hurlers in Antrim. You even think about those Dunloy lads who put on a show. You have young James McNaughton there from Loughneel. There's some brilliant hurlers in Antrim. But Antrim have appointed a person there, and yes, he has a good CV from his early days. Let's call it that. That hasn't been so impressive over the last maybe 7 or 8 years into it, and I don't think that style of management works anymore. In terms of, you've seen him on Waterford last year, slapping boys in the back in their faces, come on, that her, and I don't think that works anymore. I think it's a distraction. You look at go back to Jim Gavin, who probably didn't crack a smile enough. Even think about Desi Farrell. you think of something about the good managers in football. They tend not to be. If Padraig Joyce, Kieran McGinney last year, Kieran McGinney changed his style almost completely last year to be more reserved and more emotionally controlled. Davy doesn't seem like that type of person. For me, it will be the Davy show. And unfortunately, it's almost like Antrim had picked a person by name who seems like he's on his way down the ladder. As opposed, Darren Gleeson, wherever he ends up, I know he hasn't done well, but Darren Gleeson seemed to use Antrim as a stepping stone to go on to potentially bigger things. I just don't like taking someone who's on their way down. If it wasn't Antrim he was taking, he's probably going to win the Division 3, or Division 2 it's called. He's probably going to go in there to take a team.
And in terms of prediction, do you think Waterford will bite back at Davy in this game?
Look, I know that it's a hard yardstick to put anyone to. Obviously, Carlo and things like that. Carlo has been putting in performance. So the shock that they be at Waterford? Probably two people who maybe haven't been following hurling for a wee while, and just the name Waterford hurlers versus Carlo hurlers. Antrim like playing in Kerrigan Park. The only problem is it's going to be the day before, the day after the football. If it's wet this weekend, which it's meant to be, that pitch is going to cut up. Niall McCallion, who looks after the pitch, will have his work cut out trying to make it fit for hurling. And if it comes down to a battle between size and strength and everything like that, I think the Waterford will have more than enough to match Antrim in that department. I think Antrim just don't have their best players available to them. Neil McMahon's is still the best hurler in Antrim at the minute, and he is in as a performance coach rather than lying out in full forward for them. And even last year they relied so much on Neil to get them scores at fatal times. They just don't have that this year.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Waterford, unfortunately, as well to win this game. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see with Davy Fitzgerald this year and the players potentially returning for Antrim, but we'll have to see in the next few months. Nearly get to the championship. The other game in Division 1B is Laois against Carlow in Port on Sunday at 2 p.m. Laois only got their first points last week against Westmeath. Carlow started off like a house on fire, to be fair to them, with Martin Kavanagh, Chris Nolan, John Nolan, all the Nolan doing absolutely brilliant from a Carlow point of view. Would you expect Carlow to get another win this weekend?
I think the Laois win will do them about a confidence of world of good. At home, the only thing is Carlow have put in bigger scalps this year. Carlow have been coming for a wee while now. Even you think about last year at Kilkenny and stuff like that, they've been putting in very good performances. I would expect a Carlow win at home, but I think Laois can push them an awful long way. At least up to maybe the 55th minute or so like that.
Yeah, I'll probably go for Carlow to win this game as well. Confidence seems to be on an all-time high at the moment. Just on the ticker, there is the lower division games just all at once. So in Division 2, we have, looking here, it is Derry against Kildare on Saturday at 3 p.m. On Sunday, in Division 2, you have Donegal against Kerry at 1 p.m. and Meath against Down at 1:15 p.m. on Sunday. On Saturday, in Division 3, you have Mayo against London at 6 p.m. And then on Sunday, Wicklow against Roscommon at 1 p.m. and Cavan against Armagh at 2 p.m. Then in Division 4 on Saturday, you have Monaghan against Warwickshire at 2 p.m. and Longford against Lancashire at 2 p.m. And then on Sunday, Louth against Leitrim at 1:15 p.m. Just looking at some of them games there, Kevin. I suppose Down, they've started with a house of fire under Ronan Sheehan. They've got 3 wins out of 3, to be fair to them. So, that could be another team in Ulster hurling that are on the rise.
Certainly on the rise. The problem with Down is that they have always been 3 clubs. It's always been just 3 clubs providing Down with everything at Ards Peninsula. That I remember even Michael Johnson was down taking them in there. He was told that's what the hurling is, and Ronan's not a peninsula man. He's from Kilkenny, living in Newry now, and he started to do an awful lot of groundwork. And he's a great man for hurling. He's a big, passionate man for young players coming through, for driving hurling, and he wants Down to be up there competing. He does everything volunteering. There was times where he wasn't even collecting mileage. I'd be surprised he still collecting mileage. The fella's just a great hurler, a great Gael, and I think that if he can push down on that wee bit more, maybe find themselves up and competing with maybe Westmeath and Laois and Antrims, that we could see a Down emergence again. They are where they are for a reason. They are in there because that's the level that they're at now, but certainly they can build better things in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully Down will come up this year and provided a good crack, to be fair. Kildare and Kerry seem to be very good in Division 2 as well, but like Down are on fire at the moment, and hopefully that will lead them to promotion from the division. But yeah, that's an hour and a half in the books in terms of football and hurling in the Allianz League. Just before we wrap up the show, Kevin, the GA kind of deleted your account, the Gaelic Sports Tracker App. So where could we find you if you do have a new account?
I'm back on Twitter. I was back on Instagram and then I got deleted again for some reason. I'm not sure. So I'm back on Twitter, and to save me from getting deleted, I went and bought the bloody £11 a month thing. So I'll keep it on for a couple of months so they don't kick me off. I changed the name and stuff. I was actually looking at Gavin there. Missed the chats what I had with Gavin an awful lot there in case he thinks I've deleted him or ignored him on it. I have been kicked off from it, but I am on Twitter underneath Gaelic Stats App, I think it is. So give us a follow in there. I'll try and get the numbers back up again, because you do miss, like, there's people, I get text messages of boys Sylvester from Mayo and just boys from all over the place, and it's always good humour and good banter, and talking to different Gaels is a wonderful thing. We have a great community.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely everybody give Kevin a follow and get him right back up the pedestal on social media, on Gaelic Games social media, because he absolutely deserves the same. And yeah, thanks to Kevin for coming on today. Thanks to Liam, thanks to Gavin, and thanks to Acers for commenting and making the show what it was this evening. And enjoy the games at the weekend. Thanks for Capture Athletics for sponsoring today's show. And until next week, we'll see you then. Enjoy the games at the weekend. Take care. Enjoy the games.